What happens when you finally take that leap of faith, truly stepping out into your purpose and let everything align, your past, your present, your future, your energy, new mentors, new network, to be able to go out and serve the people who need what you possess. Now, I know I'm talking a little bit vague because I don't want to tip my hand on what a phenomenal interview it was with Vickie Everett. And she is one of the founding partners of the Twang Sistas. And I'm not going to, you're going to have to just listen to figure that out. But it's a fascinating journey of how she was working for many years in marketing and sales. And finally, during COVID, that door started to shut and she had to step out in faith to say, I'm ready for the purpose that I'm really here to deliver to the world. And she did. And the Twang sisters were born. And I can't wait for you to hear this story of just faith and preparation. And more importantly, just embracing what's in front of you. So let's dive into today's episode of You're in Charge, Conversations that Spark Change with the Twang sister, Vickie Everett. Okay, so Vickie, first, thank you so much for being here with us today. So we're going to jump right in here. What fascinated me about you and wanting to get you on the podcast, I just kept hearing this thing called the Twang Sistas and what that was, and it just fascinated me. So explain to the audience what that is and how it began.
Okay. Well, first of all, Glenn, thank you so much for having me on. I was excited to do this. So the Twang sisters all started out with Rise and Grind. And Gail and Susan are actually biological sisters. I'm kind of adopted, but I didn't know them before Rise and Grind. So I had started Rise and Grind with Glenn Lundy. We do that every morning at 5:30 for people that don't know about that. And so that's how Gail and I met first, in Rise and Grind. And he was going to have this big event in Paris, Kentucky. And he contacted me and asked if I would volunteer to help. And I'm like, absolutely. And Gail did also. So that's how we connected. Right. And then her sister Susan came. So anyway, we all, did that event, and we met Danelle Delgado at this event. So then we did another event with Glenn, and it was in Orlando, Florida, and it was the Hustle and Grind Con. And
yes, I remember that. Yeah.
Yeah, so this is where the twang started. So somebody just casually walks up to me, and they had seen me on Rise and Grind, with Glenn, and they're like, "Hey, Vickie, how are you?" I said, "I just love your accent." And I'm like, "I don't have an accent, you do. I have a twang." So then that just kind of stuck, and the three of us were always together, so they called us the Twang Sistas. Well, we got to know Danelle at that event really well. We just connected with her, and that's kind of where networking comes into effect. But we got Danelle to come to Kentucky and spend a weekend. Well, it was more than a weekend. It was like 5 days with us at the Kentucky Castle. I don't know if you caught any of that. We did her Friday night live on top of the castle. Okay. And we just went into that because we loved her, and we were like the Twang sisters already, but we didn't have a business or anything. And we just wanted to hang out with her. We loved her. So we had all these fun things planned and everything we were doing. And the next thing I know, we walk out with a business plan. She's like, "Y'all have something special here. We need to either figure out how to bottle this up and sell it, or this needs to go out to the world." And so our heads were just spinning. We're like, okay, so it's a Twang Thang LLC originated right then. And pretty much what we do, we started out just volunteering in our community. We went to food banks, we went to homeless shelters, we did all kinds of dinners for women and children around Christmas time. And that's kind of how it started. We would wear our t-shirts. It wasn't a money thing. It was purely service, and it still is. Right. But from there, it went to, because like when we did Danelle at the castle, when we spent time with her, we showered her with gifts. We made these real big foo-foo things and these big gold crown cookies, and we're just all kinds of neat things. And so it's all about, Glenn, how you make somebody feel. Because I know you've heard somebody made forget what you did or what you said, but they will never forget how you made them feel. And so
Correct.
that's the whole core of our business. We want to lift other people up. And then it just kind of grew. Glenn hired us to do several events, all the speaker gifts, and we put everything we had into it. We would research the person out. I mean, kind of creep through their social media and come up with like a wow object, and we would build around that. So when the person opened it, and we have a lot of video of people doing this, they're like, wow. And they don't forget how that made them feel. The person that sent it to them, we turn twang into a verb. So you get twanged. When they get twanged, they love it. And it's just all about how it makes them feel. So that's kind of how it started. We like to keep everything to the core of our business, the way it started, and that's with service. And we know it's not about us at all. It's about what God can do through us.
Right.
So recently we partnered with, I don't know if you know Eddie Brown with the Giving Words Foundation. He's out of Virginia. It's a nonprofit organization for single mothers and children. He gives them vehicles. I mean, he's partnered up with a lot of people, and he contacted us and he said, I need to twang these women. We're like, we're on it, Eddie, we're on it. But then we decided we're just going to go there in person, and we're going to give of our time. And so we spent the whole weekend, this was 2 weeks ago, pouring into these women and these children. And we got just as much out of it as they did.
Sure.
So that's kind of the heart of our business. That's what we do. And we're training with Danelle, we train with Glenn. And I think just investing in ourselves, it allows us to give back and to give more. So that's kind of how the Twangs originated. It was purely just organic. It just kind of happened.
So it's a phenomenal story. And for those of you, just to some of the audience who may not know, as Vickie said, Glenn Lundy on Facebook every morning, 5:30. There's a Facebook group called Rise and Grind, and he's been doing this now every day, Monday through Friday. He's going to be almost to show 1,000 very soon. You can also listen to him. He has on Clubhouse, Breakfast of Champions, and a lot of these individuals that Vickie mentioned are in there as well. So there's a couple things to unpack out of that story. For someone who is thinking about starting a business, and in your case, it happened almost without you even trying to have a business, sitting with Danelle Delgado, and she said you have a business. So you mentioned it about networking and the power of networking and sort of leaning into your network without fear. If someone's sitting there saying, I'm a little hesitant about reaching out to people, talk about how you reached out to these folks to ask them to help you.
Well, that's another funny thing about this. We didn't really reach out to anybody. We reached out to Danelle, but we formed organically, and people started reaching out to us because it's contagious. When people see you over here lifting other people up and the way it makes them feel, and they're like, oh my gosh, I want to twang, so-and-so, and I want to do that. So we really didn't reach out for help. And then once we did a big event for Glenn, and then we've also done them for Danelle and her masterminds, once we've done those, it's like, then people want to reach out to us. So networking was really important to us because it put us in contact. It put us, Glenn, in rooms we have no business being in. Like, who are we? But we're there, and people like us because we're authentic, we're real, and we stick to our core values. We've been asked to do a couple of things that just did not line up with our core value, and we had to say no. So I think that's important. I think it's really important. Your network that you're in, like our Rise and Grind, that's more than just people. That's our family. That has truly become our family.
Well, see, what I like about that, and again, I just wanted to hone in on it because, again, sometimes we get so much going on in these conversations. I want the audience to really hone in on what you just said. It's the fact that you have an authenticity to what you're doing. It was designed to serve, not sell. Right. Yeah. It was the serving of others. That is contagious. And that authenticity stands out where care into your projects or your gifts can be seen. And then when you have someone who's willing to bring you into the room,
yeah,
all of a sudden people can sense that and they're attracted to that. So if you're thinking, folks, if any of you out there are thinking about a business, it really is, what problem are you solving, or how are you lifting up others, or how are you serving others? That's better than, boy, I'm going to sell them something and make a lot of money.
yes. Even if you do have a product to sell, we do have, a product to sell, but our focus is on the other person. It's on serving.
Right.
I guess you'd say it's passion or purpose over paycheck. So,
Well, your passion, and again, the product, but it's not what I like about what you're saying is, yes, the product is, hey, for instance, I can create speaker gifts, right? There's a million ways to do that. But the fact that you're taking the time to say what's important to that speaker, instead of, I'm just going to give the same thing to every speaker, which can be easy. What you're doing is saying, well, if Glenn was speaking, I'm going to do some research to see what makes Glenn tick, or what's the thing that I can put in front of him that he goes, wow, you took time to find out about me and deliver this. I think that's different, right? That's different, and that comes from that service mentality, servant and service mentality.
oh yeah, and he's been twanged. Glenn's been twanged numerous times. Danelle's been twanged. I mean, the list goes on. Before it's over, you'll be twanged.
And I would be honored to be twanged.
It's funny. I was on Clubhouse one night, and Justin Guarini was on there, I think, and he said everybody was talking, and Frank Lopes got on there, and he goes, "Yes, I've been twanged. It's great." And Glenn popped on, and a few other, Danelle and some other people. And Justin says, "Well, have I been twanged? I don't know. Have I ever been twanged?" Like, you would know.
You would know. You would know. So let me ask you then. So prior to this, right? Is this your focus or your perspective on business? Has it always been this way? If we roll back to younger Vickie, early in Vickie's business career, has service always been part of your thought process or execution, or is this something that's changed over time?
I've always had a servant's heart, but in the jobs I've done, I'm in sales and marketing. I'm not now. My husband and I retired, and that's kind of part of my story, because I was with the company for 10 years, and when the pandemic hit, and it was a really good job, and when the pandemic hit, they just eliminated my position. So
right.
Like, nobody wants to think they can be that invaluable that just you're gone. But the interesting thing, as I think back, God plants seeds in us all along and then nudges us toward our
Right.
purpose. And I can see some nudges that happened even a couple of years back. I knew that it was probably time to move on, and for different reasons. And I didn't. I was like, oh, gotta have that steady paycheck. Gotta have that steady paycheck.
Yeah.
So what happened when the job was eliminated, the door wasn't slammed shut altogether. They left it, God left that door cracked, because he's like, my boss said, we've eliminated this. We will allow you to stay on board. You have to turn in your car, your office, all this. You can take a lower position up front and a 50% pay cut. And I was so devastated over the loss of my job, I was actually considering that. And then after I really thought about it, I thought, you know what, this is God's way of saying, I've got bigger and better things for you, but you have to trust. That's what faith is. So I told him I had to have a day to think about it. I didn't know what I was going to do. And I went home and I really spent time praying about this. And I knew exactly it was time to go. I wasn't going to take that little crack open in the door and have a steady paycheck coming in, even though it was smaller. I knew. And so I took my car, and Danelle always teaches in her trainings, leave them better than you found them.
Right.
So, and integrity is huge with me.
Sure.
So I washed the car. I waxed it. I scrubbed it. It was shining. I filled it with gas, took it back. I had my other Twang sister out there as my getaway car though. And I just, I told them, and it was like in the shower that morning, that's when things come to me. It was like God was saying, I want you to go in there, and I want you to use gratitude, and I want you to call to mind all the things about each of them. I had 2 bosses that are good and blessings that came from that job. And so I did that. And when I left, they ended up hugging me and wishing me well. And that there was no hard feelings at all, but I truly, honestly, in my heart left from a place of gratitude. And so I think that is huge. And that is a product of training with Danelle Delgado. She teaches about gratitude, and that's how you ought to start every single day before your feet even hit the floor.
Sure.
And so I truly put that into practice. And since then, Glenn, also another huge thing I would tell people, if you're having these thoughts or dreams or whatever, they're there for a reason. That's part of your passion. Write them down.
Yes,
write down every single thing. There's power in writing it down. So I did that. And as I look back a year later, I have accomplished almost every single thing I wrote down. I quit that job that I really wasn't that happy in. I quit the job. My husband retired. We sold our home. We've built a new home we're about to move into, and my Twang business exploded. Now I have all this time to work on that, to go for a weekend and serve others if I want to. And then I have a granddaughter that's a year and a half older, and I wanted to be able to spend time with her.
Right.
You know? So I think one of the biggest things for me, when I wrote that down on paper, I saw I can do this. We can do this. And we just started checking off. And, you know, that it's a lot of hard work, because I think even in networking and in all these things, those are seeds. You're planting seeds, and God puts seeds down on the inside of us. But when you plant those seeds with people, you got to have dirt on them, you know, and
Sure.
dirt helps you grow, but it's not fun. I mean, dirt can come from your haters. It can come from negative things coming at you or whatever, but you're going to sprout through it and grow. And so as I look back, since I've been with Glenn Lundy and Rise and Grind and Danelle Delgado, my social media, like my news feed, is nothing but positivity and inspiration and motivation. And that's no accident. I have not necessarily have I distanced myself so much from people, but once you start changing, coming into who you know you're supposed to be, and you set those boundaries, and everything lines up with your core values, you start losing friends, and that's okay. I call them weeds, and sometimes you got to pluck those weeds. Just pluck them. Get them out
No,
of
and
there.
I think all of those things that you were saying are so spot on, because having that nudge. I was interviewing a gentleman, Jason Rice, an episode or two ago in the podcast, and he was saying the same thing about when he started his business. He said he had it in his head, and there was always this nudge, and sometimes you listen to it and sometimes you don't. But once you allow yourself to step out in that, you know, trust, and step out in that faith, you're right, it's hard work. But you know, as my wife said when I started my company with my brother, she said, you know, you're working twice as hard, but you're happier, and more importantly, you're using more of your brain. She always said, she looks at it differently. She said, well, what if you stayed in that other job? Yes, you would be making the money, but you wouldn't be happy, and you'd be not challenged. Where here, it's a big step, but wow, you're on overdrive and you're challenging yourself. And so now I look 10 years past, or 12 years past that time I left, and there's so many things. I wouldn't change anything. But in that moment, you're right. You see that little crack, and there is that feeling of safety. And sometimes we just have to take that plunge. So it's fascinating to hear this and go. So let me just pivot on that one thing of, if someone, so let's roll back a little bit. You hear those little pushes, you're not really happy at the other job, or it's okay. Let's not say unhappy. It's just okay, but you're not feeling fulfilled. So someone out there thinking that, and there's been a run recently on people who, I'm going to go start a business. What would you say if somebody said to you right now, should I go start my own business? What things should they think about before taking that leap?
Before leaving another job, or
Yeah.
I just think your passion needs to line up with your purpose. If it's something you're really passionate about, there's a reason, and it's already been inside of you, and you need to lean toward it. Maybe not quit that job right away, but
Right.
like, I've always been a creative person. I've always had some creative things going on the side. So I think step out, give God a little something to work with, you know, because you'll know right away if you're wrong. And you just have to, I don't know, for me, Glenn, I know this isn't for everybody, but for me, my faith is huge. My mantra is let go and let God. Anytime I feel myself slipping out of line with something, or I really need to make a major decision, I'm going in prayer first. That's just me. That's how I operate. And I get my answers, I'll have clarity on it. And sometimes you're in a waiting season and you don't know. So you just have to step out, take tiny steps, start doing things, and then you'll know. And so that would be my advice for that. Just step out.
I love that. I love that testing, because that's what I align with what you just said, because a few people have reached out to me and said, well, what do you think? And I said that same thing.
Yeah.
Go test it. Try it out, maybe with somebody, right? So if you're working at a job and you want to go do X, go see if you have a client, or do it for a friend and see if it really is what you think it is. Because I don't think some people take into consideration the structure around them at their current company that's helping to elevate them in their talents. And then sometimes we think you have one or two, for instance, I'll use your company. I have one or two events that I'm doing, and I think that's great. But then, well, what happens when those 1-2 events are over? I have to go find another event, right? So there is that. Do you like selling as much as you like doing? Because as a business person, you have to think that way, and you have to always be generating that. Do you think I'm off on that, or is that something that you would?
No, I agree with that wholeheartedly. I also think you need to incorporate fun in it. You need to have fun. We had somebody tell us not very long ago, oh, you cannot mix fun and business. But
what?
You absolutely can. And it shows through. Sure. Like, that's when I'm having fun, that's when I'm at my happiest. And that joy, that shows through to other people. So absolutely you can have fun. You should have fun. You should enjoy the littlest of things you do, even if you're just cleaning your house, cooking, whatever. You should enjoy those things. God wants us to enjoy our life. So I think you got to work on yourself first and invest in yourself. And, 10 years ago, if you'd have said, Vickie, you need to get a mentor, I'd have been like, no, I'm not paying. I'm not getting a mentor. But now I thrive on that. Like, Danelle has become one of my best friends. And so we train with her a lot. We train with Glenn. And then she also gives us, that's another part of networking, the people that train her, they also train us. So there's a lot of them. The list just keeps on growing. But I think another important factor to remember is you're going to have fear. Fear creeps up in different ways. For me, one of the things that when we started this, that I think I didn't even realize it was a form of fear, was perfection. I thought, okay, everything has to be perfect. It has to be planned perfect. That is a form of fear. What are you afraid of? You're afraid God's not going to get it right. If you're truly working in your purpose, it's going to be right. And so I had to kind of let go of that. Everything's not going to be perfect. There's going to be hard times. There are going to be people that come against you that you're shocked. And it's really nothing against them. I mean, they're issues with themselves, really not you. So you should just keep on, just plow through it. And that's been tough because I'm not a people pleaser, but I'm a nice person. So if somebody really doesn't like me, I used to struggle with that. And I'd become somebody I'm not, just to make them like me. And I had somebody recently tell me, said, Vickie, says you could be, not everybody's going to like you. Not everybody's going to like everybody all the time, said, but you could be the ripest, juiciest, most beautiful peach in the world, but there's always going to be somebody that doesn't like peaches. And I'm like, oh, that's true, but it didn't, like, throw some food in there and I get it.
No, and I think there was a book, I'm looking at it on my bookshelf right now, by Seth Godin, called Linchpin, and he talked about the perfection can be the killer of businesses or projects. And he would always commit to what he would say a ship date. Like, it's going out on this date, whatever format it's in. That means I did as best as I could, or else you could just keep tweaking forever and then nothing moves forward. So he's a big believer in pick a date, go for it, ship it, on to the next project. What did you learn? Always audit. What did you learn? What didn't you? And go. So I think I agree. There's that fear of, but I think that fear of perfection, to your point, is coming from I hope they like me. And that's one of the things that I learned when I was a speaker, going out on stage. I had a great mentor who said, once you get on stage, it's not about you, it's about them.
Yes.
So if you're thinking about, oh, I hope they like me, then you're not focused on them. So focus on them. So, and I love the way most of your business, like you're saying now, it focuses on others. So it gets you out of your head and we can focus on them. So I want to go back to the mentor, because that is a big, you've said it a few times, invest in yourself. And then we pivoted to mentors. Talk to me about that change. Why all of a sudden, as you said, 10 years ago, you would have been like, nope. Why all of a sudden were mentors, or what opened up in yourself that said that you allowed, let me do it this way, that you allowed help to come in?
You know, I guess it's because once I started stepping out and I'm entering these rooms, like I said before, that I have no business in. But I have an imagination.
Why do you say that? You said that twice.
Well,
why
very successful people, and just, you know, even some famous people. And it's like, but if you just always be yourself, you know, sometimes, well, all the time, the world needs what you have to offer. You know, anybody. And so I think that finally sunk into me. I can just be me. And I don't know, I can see myself doing other things. And once I really started doing that, envisioning myself doing things, it started happening. And Albert Einstein always said that imagination is life's preview of coming attractions. And it is.
Oh, that's great.
And so for me, that's just, I can see myself, and you're going to laugh on this one because you're like, oh my Lord, Twang, you can't. I can see myself on stage someday speaking to an audience because I can keep it real. I've learned how to take my traumas and my hurts and the things that I've been through and share it. Used to, I would never even think about sharing that out, but I have done that a few times, and the response I've gotten and the people I've helped, it's all about helping other people. And I'm like, wow, you know, so I'm even up to doing that now.
I'm surprised that it's very funny you say that. I would have already thought that either you would have been up there or somebody would have wrangled you up onto a stage because of that, that mentality of helping and being up there and sharing. That's the key. And so, as I said, that was something that was drilled into me very early on. What are you trying to teach them? How are you trying to help them? And then your focus goes out there, and then it doesn't matter if it's one person, 10 people, 1,000 people.
Yes.
Because you're just, your focus is outwards, not a hope. Now, you'll still be nervous. I get nervous every time. I always say the day I don't get nervous is the day I'm going to deliver a horrible presentation because I'm not focused. That you know, keeps you going. But I love that. And I love the fact that you talk about documenting what's in your head, getting it out of your head, and documenting where you want to go. I mean, again, we can't go somewhere if we don't know where we're going. Meaning we can't just get into a car and turn it on and start making turns and hope we get to where we're supposed to be going. We have a map. We have a plan. We figure out where we're going. Sometimes it's unexpected, but I think
sometimes it is.
no, and I think you're that's why I wanted to hit on it, because that idea holds a lot of people back, that fear of, I don't belong here. I've done it. Trust me. I look around sometimes and go, well, how did I end up in here? But when you are yourself, it's amazing how other people, whether they're famous or not, or successful or not, the truly successful are interested in you as much as you're interested in them. They're tired of talking about themselves, or they're tired about getting asked the same questions over and over again, or they're tired of being surrounded by yes people. They want somebody who's going to look at them and say, no, I don't really agree with that. In an honest way, they probably would respect that much more than, okay, whatever you say, sir, say whatever you say, ma'am.
Yeah. Well, Danelle also teaches us, and this is kind of interesting. She says, who's the lucky one that's going to get to run into me today? And she's not being cocky. That is the honest truth. It's like, if you could look into the future and knew who you would help just by stepping out or speaking up or whatever, you would do it a lot quicker.
Sure.
And so You know, we also with her, I keep talking about her because she has been the one that has just really been there for me and for us, for the Twang sisters. And she takes a personal interest in us. We love her and her kids. And she just, we go through the book. I'm sure you've read it, The Greatest Salesman in the World.
Sure.
Dino. And so we're going through the scrolls. This is the second time that we've done that. And every time I do it, I just get something different out of it. And just, I think filling my brain with positive motivational stuff, it just trains your brain and it gives me a different outlook. And it truly helps me have gratitude every day. Even when things aren't going well, I can still turn and have gratitude and have joy. So that definitely comes from her, because I told her the day she knew about all that going on with my job, and the day that I had my getaway car and we got out of there, I called her and I'm like, well, I did it. And she's like, yes, because they called me the poop queen, because what I did, and it's not what you're thinking, I worked for a company. I worked for a company that did high-end restroom trailers for weddings, special events and stuff like that. So she's like, you traded in your crown.
There you go.
Yeah. But
but see, again, what's fascinating about this conversation, and I hope everybody is taking notes and writing these down, but the more that you surround yourself with people who are willing to, it's not positive in the delusional, everything's great. It's, we all have the ability to meet our challenges. You know, I look at obstacles as a puzzle that I have to figure out how to get around or where I need to go. And, you know, challenges are that wall. I can't remember who it was, but I always loved it. They said, when you hit the wall, that means you have to figure out a way to get through that, because that's the barrier to your next level. And you got to get through that. And if you give up, then you're missing out what's on the other side. So it's not always easy, but surrounding yourself with people, and what I like, what you've done is surround yourself with people who are willing to push you, lean into you, challenge you. And that's also going back to your network of surrounding yourself with people who, you know, have your interest at heart as much as you know, they're serving you as much as you're serving them.
Exactly. We teamed up around Mother's Day with Bruce Pulver and with Eddie Brown and his single mothers, and we did these mom boxes, and Bruce donated books and we donated these pearl bracelets that we made, and we chose a pearl for these mothers. This just gives you a little in-depth on the Twang sisters and what we do. The reason we chose pearls is because that, for a pearl to be formed, it takes grit, and it takes that sand getting in that oyster, and it's grit, you know, and so that had meaning to it, and we typed something up with that. And so that's just, I don't know, that's still part of networking, because we had Bruce, we had Eddie, and we did all these mom boxes, and it was fabulous. And it's just about, again, goes back to how you make somebody feel. So
well, and I want to keep going on. I love this conversation about your network, because a lot of times people are not conscious about their network, meaning they think it just happens. They wait for it, versus reaching out, not asking again, I'm not going, hey, Vickie, what do you got for me? It's, hey, Vickie, how can I help you? But in turn, those other people are reaching out to you. I remember my wife and I were talking about my oldest son. He was always a cheerleader when he was in school, you know, when he was young, always, he'd be the kid who's saying, you can do this for everyone else. And then we wanted to make sure when we were moving him into he was graduating into another school, that school had people around him that could do that for him, because sometimes we always are giving to others, or sometimes the givers don't like to receive. And I think that's something that I had to learn, that the humility of being able to receive someone's generosity doesn't make you any worse. It may not be comfortable for you, okay, but then you're actually denying the other person their satisfaction in helping you. You know, that's a little selfish, I think, when you don't receive.
Yeah, that's true. That's exactly. I've always kind of struggled in that area too, because I think even as mothers, we want to do for everybody else. And then it's harder even to ask for help or to even receive compliments. You know, we're like, oh no. But when you change your way of thinking, everything just kind of changes. You know, Danelle put it out there to our group. She said, this has been a few months back, I want every single one of y'all to get on Clubhouse and start a room. I'm like, what? I don't know anything about Clubhouse. I am not doing that. She said, you all need to do it. So the Twang started a Clubhouse room, and truly it was not for us at all, because I was like, I don't know anything about Clubhouse. I don't know anything about moderating, but I just did it. I just did it. And the first night I did it, a couple people popped in there, and I was only trying to schedule it for like 2 days later, and I was live on there, and I'm like, oh my God. And that became funny, and that's just how you learn. Just step out, make those mistakes. You know,
Yes.
We're all going to make mistakes. So to me, anytime I've learned this, when I make a mistake, it's not failure. It's not failure at all, because I learned from it. So it's like,
yeah, well, it's who said that? One of the other people on my podcast, J.M. Ryerson, said it's only a failure if you didn't learn anything.
yeah.
And I thought that was a really wonderful way to look at it. And also that idea of accepting compliments, same thing. I always struggle with that, because I didn't want it until someone just basically, my accountability friends just did one of those slaps in the head and said, hey, just say thank you. That's all you have to say. Just say thank you. Don't deflect. Don't justify. You're being selfish. Just say thank you and move on. And it took me a while to do that. But you're right. It is this idea of failure. Someone asked me about that and said, well, what do you think about failure? I said, it depends on what your view of failure is. My view is completely different, because I don't think it's failure. That's one less thing. That's one way that didn't work. Great. I don't want to repeat that. Let's go try something else. And your drive has to be, I think, surrounding yourself in your network consciously with people who are willing to help you or put you in that position to provide maybe some guardrails or safety bumpers that said, hey, we're here if you fall. We'll help you get back up, but you have to fall. I can't prevent you from falling.
Well, we did fall. Our first night we did a Clubhouse room. Scott Simons felt so sorry for us. He got on there. He's texting me behind the scenes, and he's like, okay, because we were all in one room. And when I started the room, it went, I'm like, oh my goodness, what are we going to, we were during our meeting. We meet on Monday nights, and I'm thinking, what in this world? So we all split up. Scott got on. He said, just live in front of everybody. And he's like, here's what you do. He was so kind. Here's what you do. I'm going to help you. Here's how you moderate. But that's how you learn. Yeah, it was embarrassing, but who cares?
But you know what? It isn't, because one, you didn't make it embarrassing. Two, we have a network where you're a gentleman like Scott would be there. But you know what? Everybody else is going, well, thank God it wasn't me. But you know what? They didn't learn either. So again, it is those willing to take those challenges and take those, as you said earlier, which I thought was great, is stepping out in your faith, just to say, it's all right. We'll figure it out. Nothing, unless it's ongoing traffic, I'm not going to die. So we'll just, it's Clubhouse. How bad can it be? I shut it down and I go home and go, oh, never doing that again. But now look.
Done that though, we would have missed all the blessings. People each week afterwards, they just send us these messages, and they're like, wow, I needed to hear that. And I'm like, I know you did, because we pray before we get on there, Lord, just please put the right people in this room that need to hear it. This isn't about us. It's about what you can do through us. And we say that every single night when we start the room, and it never fails.
Well, it's that's sort of, that's a reason with this podcast. Some days I'm excited, and other days, it's not going fast enough. That's my own ego. But then I get people reaching out to me and saying, that was a phenomenal episode. That really meant something to me. Or more importantly, I'm always just pleased when a guest will say, no one ever asked me that. No one ever asked me that question. We're always talking about X. Somehow we ended up over here, and it allowed them to share a side of themselves that normally they don't. So I just said, we're just going to keep doing it. This has been in my head for 2 years, until my friends finally said, we're tired of hearing you talk about it. Please do it. I expect it now. And, last June, just got in front of a microphone, said, here we go. And yeah, you're right. You never know. You never know how you're going to meet people, help people. And eventually it's going to be what it's going to be. And even if it's not the number one, you can want it. But you know what? How many people, like you said, how many people have you helped by just them hearing you? And you'll never see that ripple. It may never come back to you. Yeah. But that happened, and that's good enough.
Absolutely. Yeah. You just never know. You never know who it's going to put you in connection with either. Like Glenn Lundy's been saying for years, he wants to meet Will Smith. He wants him on the show.
Right.
Well, we've all been on a mission. Will Smith will be on Rise and Grind before too long.
We will get him there. We will get him there. So, so here, as we wrap up, I want to just, I ask this question a lot for people. So obviously, you know, the marketing and business and things like that. If you roll yourself back to high school age, maybe 9th, 10th grade, right? When we go back there, was it the person there, were those seeds of who you are now there, or were, was other things, you know, because I've talked to some people and they said, well, you know, for instance, Glenn, he said, well, I had some aspects, but I was lazy and now I'm not, you know. So talk to me about that 9th, 10th grade Vickie. Where are the similarities? Where are there dissimilarities?
Well, first of all, back then, and this will make you laugh, I wanted to be a TV news broadcaster. That is what I wanted to do. I knew I wanted to do it. But instead of and I probably could have done it, instead of pushing myself forward, I let somebody stop me back then. Well, I guess it wasn't in high school. It was the first year of college. And they said, you'll never make it as a broadcaster because of my twang. So I had to take classes to talk different. And I'm like, this is not working. This is not me. So I've always kind of had this in me. I like to talk. I like to meet people and get in front of people, but I let that person stop me. Actually, I only went 1 year of college. So it stopped me in my tracks. Now, if it was me now, I would have pushed through it and I would have made it happen. But the funny thing is, the ironic thing, the thing that stopped me then is the thing that is making me successful now. And that's the twang, you know? So you have to laugh at that. But when I look back to me in high school, of course, I'm a totally different person, but I always have had humor has been a huge part of my life, laughter and creativity. So yeah, the seeds have been there. I just wasn't spiritually mature enough to know how to push through and how to lean into my faith. And you really can't know that until you just experience life and you get out and you try things and you get knocked down, you know, because he pulls us from the pit up. He doesn't choose people way up here.
Right.
So that's how I think that I'm going to be able to be used, is because people look at me and they're like, well, what does she know? She hadn't been through anything. And so when I started opening up in some of the groups that we're in and sharing, and then I have people calling me behind the scenes going, oh my God, how are you so joyful? How are you so? And I said, because my mantra is let go and let God. And I've learned this and I've overcome so much. I've raised my girls to do the very same thing. And you're not going to be helpful if you've had a silver spoon in your mouth your whole life and you've never, ever been through anything. Right. So I think all of that together, I think that's been shaping me all along, because I did have the creativity. I did have the imagination that I could talk in front of people. I'm glad I didn't become a broadcaster. I would hate that in today's world right now, the way the world is. But I think it has. To answer your question, I think it has been in me. It's just now I'm able to work with it.
I love that, because I think everyone I've asked that question, there is that it was there, but certain things take time, right? Yeah. It's if you think of cooking, certain things take time to really blend together and be ready to serve. You could serve it early, it's not going to be as good. So I think, you know, what I'm hearing is you are broadcasting now. See, funny enough, you are broadcasting. You're on Clubhouse. You're broadcasting, right, with a twang, and you're doing it as your authentic self versus a version of it. And I think if anyone listening to this, again, the more that you can be authentic to yourself, and it can develop, it can take time, but the more that you can be authentic to yourself and saying, how can I help? I think that's a great first step to get you onto your path of what you should be doing.
Absolutely. Yeah, I agree.
Great. So, okay, so we got a couple what I call rapid fire behind the mic questions, whatever comes to your mind first.
Uh-oh.
Yeah, we do these. All right. Favorite, I call it the cheat meal, something that you're not supposed to eat, but boy, do you love eating it.
Oh my God, Glenn, that would have to be chocolate.
There
I
you
love chocolate, but it does not love me. So my husband and I work out every single morning. We do this together since we've been retired, and we love it. But it's like, if I could just have that, oh my God, but I might as well just lick it and stick it somewhere, it just doesn't work.
A place that you want to travel to that you haven't been to yet.
Oh my gosh, I want to go to Italy. My husband has family. He's Italian, and he has family in Italy, and they're still alive. And I said, someday we have got to make it over there. It doesn't matter if they don't know us. I mean, they just welcome everybody on in.
No, I tell you, my family is my mother's side is from Italy, and my brother Brian, who I'm partners with, he was always into researching the family tree, and he reconnected with some of the relatives over there. And when he got married over there, maybe 5 years ago, we brought my parents there, and my mother got to meet some of the cousins that she never met before, and she actually got to go into the house, because it's still in the family, where her father was born.
Oh, wow.
So that was, yeah. So again, I recommend, don't worry, they want to see you, they want to connect and go,
And they can cook. Oh my goodness. Dave's mother was the best cook ever. She made the spaghetti, and back in the day, she made her own spaghetti and strung it and hung it.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
What is a movie that you stop and watch when you run across it on TV or wherever?
Kind of a sad case. I don't watch a lot of TV, but when I do, I like a happy ending. I can tell you a movie I hated that everybody loved, and it was A Star Is Born. And I don't know if you saw it.
I didn't like it. I didn't like it.
I did not like it at all, but I like a sappy movie that's going to end well. I like Sweet Home Alabama. It's funny.
That's a good one. That's a good one. That's a good one. What are you reading right now or listening to that is inspiring you that you would want to share with others?
Gosh, I've read so many books. I don't have one going right now, but like Tim Grover's book, Relentless, and then the Og Mandino, Greatest Salesman in the World, The Like Switch. They're all these books that we read in our trainings. And right now we're going through the scrolls again. So I don't have plus I'm building a house, and we're just like,
listen, I haven't, but I've been around people who have, and I say, no, thank you. Don't.
Oh, I love it. I absolutely love it.
No.
That and my granddaughter that I keep every day, it's hard to have like free time anymore, but yeah, I love to read. And
great.
So, yeah.
All right. I'm going to get all of your closest friends together in a room, and I'm going to say, describe Vickie in one word. What would it be?
Probably crazy. Funny. I don't know.
Okay.
I don't know.
That's good. That's all right. Those are good words. Okay. So last question. We've talked about a lot of things. And again, I just want to thank you so much for taking time out to join me. I just love this conversation. I love your journey and love your story. But if there was one thing, right, if you could say, if the people who are listening to this episode could get one thing, take one thing away from everything we've talked about, what would it be?
Let go and let God. It's not about you. It's about what God can do through you, and how you can affect other people, and how you can inspire them, and how you make them feel.
I love that. Absolutely love that. So how can our listeners find you online, connect with you online, and reach out to you and connect?
We have a Facebook page. We're working on a website. We don't have that yet, but we have a Facebook page, and it's the Twang Sistas, TWANGSISTAS. And you can find us on Instagram as that as well. So
Great.
websites.
It's funny you say that, because when I typed in sisters, I couldn't find you. And then all of a sudden I said, oh, I'm not spelling
it right.
I'm not spelling it with a twang. So there you go. So you got to figure that out. Okay. So again, thank you so much. I really do appreciate all of what you said today. For those of you listening, just remember, like I say at the end, please make sure you subscribe wherever you are listening to this on your podcast. Make sure you subscribe. New episodes come out every Monday and every Thursday. Also, you can follow us on the YouTube channel so you can see the both of us while we're having this conversation. Please make sure you share it out. There's a lot of people who could really use what Vickie shared today to help them through their challenges. So please make sure you share it. Don't forget to rate the episode, leave your comments. Love to hear what you think about it. And as always, as I end every episode, you're in charge. But now Vickie gave you a few more things to help you become more successful, both personally, professionally, and spiritually as well. So again, thank you so much, Vickie. Look forward to seeing you and meeting you in person. I cannot wait.
Thank you. Look forward to meeting you too. Are you coming in November?
Possibly. I have to go check my schedule. So, all right. Great. See you next time.
Thank you.